Broncos country, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Denver Broncos 2026 53-man roster way too early edition. I do plan on doing more of these as the offseason continues to go on, after OTAs, after minicamp, during training camp, just a couple more times as the season progresses and players start to perform really well and others start to not perform as well. But this is my way too early edition. I promise you guys this video all the way back in my day 3 draft live stream, and quite frankly, I've just been lazy to call a spade a spade. I have just been super lazy, but this video is finally here. I have my 53-man prediction up on the second monitor here, so if I'm looking off to the side, that is what I'm looking at. So if you do enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel down below, as the support is greatly appreciated. And let's get into it. So I've had this graphic made for a while now. I would say 5 years I've had this graphic now. But yeah, it's essentially the 53-man roster right here, and not necessarily the 53-man roster. It's just the roster that we have, the 90-man roster, and then it gets cut down to the 53-man roster. We got IR, we got practice squad, we got the draft, still got to fill that in, and free agency tracker, as well as a color code if we do want to get super fancy, as well as tracking how many players are on the roster. So here we go. Let's go ahead. Something else I wanted to do, is we're going to go year by year. These are all of the initial rosters when Sean Payton was the head coach. We're going to go position by position to see how many players the Broncos initially kept each year. We'll go year by year from 23 to 24 to 25, and that kind of gave me my estimate of how many players the Broncos are going to keep at each position group. Obviously, things could change, but it does show a lot of trends, so we can kind of guess how many players the Broncos are going to keep at each position. So let's go ahead and let's get started. Of course, we're starting with the quarterbacks. In 2023, we kept 2 quarterbacks, Russell Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. In 24, we kept 3 with Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, and Zach Wilson when we traded for him one day before the draft. And then in 2025, we only kept Bo and Jarrett Stidham. This year, it's going to be no difference. Bo Nix is going to be the starter. A lot of concern about him and his ankle injury. I'm not too worried about it. From everything we heard, Bo Nix is on track, and he's going to participate. It looks like in July in training camp. Could participate maybe in June, but July seems like the more realistic timeline for Bo Nix to be back. And then Jarrett Stidham is going to be the backup, making $12 million this season, the second year of a 2-year contract, I believe. And I think this is going to be the quarterback 1 and 2. You can lock it in now, unless there's an injury during preseason and a team wants to get a quarterback with starting experience and can start, because I believe there have been some reports out there that some teams view Jarrett Stidham as kind of a backup starter type of quarterback. So if a team maybe trades for Jarrett Stidham, then you keep Sam Ehlinger here. But for right now, I do think it's 2 quarterbacks, especially when there's already going to be a lot of hard cuts on this roster. I don't think you can justify keeping a 3rd quarterback on the roster. Now moving on to running backs, we're going to count fullbacks in here as well as part of the running back room. So in 2023, we kept 4 running backs right here. 2025 or 2024, we kept 4. No fullback, but I believe this was the year Michael Burton was on the practice squad. We elevated him for a few games, and then eventually we signed him to the active roster. Then 2025, last season, we kept 4 running backs as well. And I am not changing anything in terms of the players or in terms of how many players we're keeping. J.K. Dobbins is going to be a running back 1, even though it is a running back room by committee. I really like J.K. Dobbins and what he brings. Is he going to be the fastest breakaway speed guy? No, but he is going to be your bell cow, and you could really tell the difference for the Broncos running game when J.K. Dobbins was playing in the games, and then obviously when he went down with the injury, you could definitely tell the difference in the running game. Now, hopefully, you're hoping the injury situation can get cleared up with J.K. Dobbins. That's the biggest knock on him, is his injury history, but really like J.K. Dobbins, and I'm excited to see what he can do in year 2 in Denver. Then you got R.J. Harvey, elite receiving back. We do need to see him take a step up as a runner. Obviously, need to average more yards per carry, and in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons we lost last season in the AFC Championship game is we really couldn't run the ball in the snow. As soon as it started snowing, for every team, it's going to be harder to pass the football, so you need to rely on your ground game. We really couldn't do that. I like RJ Harvey as a player still, but does need to develop a little bit. And that's why we got a bruiser, a bowling ball in Jonah Coleman. And I do believe Jonah Coleman will be a big part of this offense. Just a tight, compact build at 5'8", just a bowling ball of a running back, and he's going to be one of those guys who can fight and pick up those tough yards, and he's an excellent pass protector as well. Really excited to have Jonah Coleman on the roster, especially with all the things that he's been posting and going on social media, predicting, calling his shot of being a Bronco, and then just being super happy and excited and interacting with a couple fans online. Jonah Coleman's already a fan favorite on this roster, so yeah, excited to see what Jonah Coleman can do for his rookie year. And then for the fourth running back, I'm going with Adam Prentice. We know Sean Payton loves his fullbacks, whether that be someone who's going to be an extra blocker on the play, or if he wants to hand it off to the fullback on a fullback dive. We've seen that countless times on 3rd and short. So I do think Adam Prentice makes it as the 4th running back. You could make an argument for Tyler Burdett if you want to keep 2 pass protecting running backs with him and Jonah Coleman, or Jaleel McLaughlin if you want to keep a scat back-esque running back on the roster. But I think this is the most likely 4 running backs that you keep on the roster. Alrighty, moving on to the receivers. I had to make a quick cut, but let's go ahead. Let's take a quick look here at how many players the Broncos kept each year for the wide receiver position. In 23, I was shocked by the Broncos only keeping 4 receivers. Was very surprising to me. So I think that is going to be an outlier, because in 2024, the Broncos kept 5, and same thing in 2024 and 2025. The Broncos kept 5 receivers each year, so we're not going to change anything about that. Now, for the X receiver, I do have Courtland Sutton being that X receiver, that number 1, just based on his build and his skill set. I don't think it should be a shock that Courtland Sutton is going to be your X receiver with the jump ball ability. But then your Z, in my opinion, this is our wide receiver 1, Jalen Waddle. Just brings an element we have not had before, and I know you've heard me say it and other people out in the media space say it. But Jalen Waddle brings the speed element, the separation element that we did not have last year. So this is a big upgrade for the Broncos, getting Bo Nix another target in Jalen Waddle. I am super pumped about this pickup. We've talked about it in length in other formats. If you want to go see me talk about Jalen Waddle and just gush about the trade, he was one of my favorite players in the league before we made the trade. And yeah, I'm super excited to have him in the orange and blue now. Moving on to the slot, could put couple guys here. I'm going Pat Bryant, and this could change as the season goes on. This could change game by game for the Broncos, but I really was impressed by Pat Bryant's rookie season, just his reliability in terms of his catching, not dropping many footballs. So Pat Bryant was really impressive. Hopefully, obviously the concussion, that was scary, and a couple other injuries his rookie year. Hopefully that's not going to be something that lingers and continues throughout his career. But I really was impressed by Pat Bryant in his rookie year. And then you got Troy Franklin as well, who I still really like as a player. Still think he's got some development, has had his up and downs over his first 2 seasons, but I still really like Troy Franklin as a player, and I'm excited to see what he can do here in year number 3. And then Marvin Mims as well, just someone we need to get the ball in his hands more. Obviously an elite punt and kick returner, but we need to design plays, whether that be on jet sweeps, on designed handoffs for Marvin Mims. We need to get the football in Marvin Mims' hands because he can make plays happen when he does have it. So just a gadget type of guy who sometimes you need to force feed him the ball during the games, in my opinion. I love Marvin Mims, and yeah, I know there's been a lot of talk about potentially trading Marvin Mims or what have you, not extending him next season. I think that would be a mistake, especially with what he brings as a returner, an all-pro, a pro bowler as a returner. I think you got to keep Marvin Mims around and got to get him the football more as a receiver. So those are the 5 receivers that I'm keeping on the roster. Moving on to the tight end position, all the way back in 2023, we kept 4 tight ends. 2025 or 2024, we kept 4 tight ends. Jeez, I keep messing that up. And then in 2025, we also kept 4 tight ends. So in 2026, we are keeping 5 tight ends, actually, and we'll talk you through it right now. So Evan Ingram, I don't think this should be a shock. There have been some talks about him potentially being a cap casualty. I just realistically don't see that happening. Did he have a down year? Yes. Did we utilize him properly? Did we misutilize him rather? Yes. So I think we need to utilize him properly, and also I'm hoping he can have a bounce back receiver because he is a really good receiving tight end when he gets the football in his hands. Just had a down year this past year, unfortunately. So Evan Ingram, I do believe, is going to stay on the roster. Same thing with Adam Troutman, and I know a lot of people have their thoughts about Adam Troutman, and you can have those thoughts, but with what you just extended Adam Troutman for, you're not going to be cutting him. You're not going to take the dead cap after signing him to a multi-year contract extension. You're not going to cut him before the season starts. Adam Troutman will be on this roster. Just kind of your jack of all trade tight ends, master of none type of build for Adam Troutman. Then we have two rookies, actually. Justin Jolie out of North Carolina State, who I'm really excited about. Obviously, in my opinion, he's a super athletic tight end who didn't test super well. So I'm hoping, obviously, that's not going to affect him in terms of his productivity, but I really like Justin Jolie, especially when you consider that tight ends, they take the longest, or they're one of the longer positions to develop in the NFL. So with the tight end room you have, in my opinion, you don't need to utilize him right away. You can if you want to, absolutely, and maybe you start playing him in the middle of the season and he starts getting more snaps by then. But you don't have to start him right away. He can learn behind Evan Ingram and Adam Troutman, who have been here, who have been in the league for some time. And then I'm also keeping Dallin Bentley. Both of the rookie tight ends we drafted, I do believe, have a spot on this roster. Now, I don't have the tight ends broken up into a move tight end, into a Y inline tight end. We're just going to put all the tight ends in this row. But I do think both of these guys have skill sets, and I like both of their skill sets as well for the future for the Broncos. Two guys who you can develop and bring along at the same time. Really like this duo of tight ends that we were able to snag in the draft. And then that fifth tight end that I mentioned is going to be Caleb Lohner, who Sean Payton said he's had taken a really nice step forward. And at the end of last year, apparently, there were opportunities for Caleb Lohner to join an active roster, but he stuck loyal. He stuck with the Broncos, and who knows? If the Broncos cut him again, does he wind back up on the practice squad, or would another team scoop him up to stash on their 53-man roster? It's interesting to see because he is a big tight end. He's a big red zone target, but as Sean Payton mentioned last year, was 400 snaps behind everyone else because he was mostly a college basketball player. So he does need to develop more as a football player. So you might keep him on your roster, hoping he can continue to develop, and then might be inactive for most, if not all, of the games, and you're hoping you can bring him along as his rookie contract goes along. But with the way Sean Payton was talking about him and how impressive he has been in rookie minicamp, who they allowed him to participate in rookie minicamp, he looked really, really good, albeit it's rookie minicamp. It's not the biggest sample size, but I decided, you know what, why not? Let's keep Caleb Lohner on this roster prediction. Moving on, we are now going to go into the offensive line. Starting at the left tackle, this shouldn't be a shock. It's Garrett Bowles. I don't think the starting offensive line at all should be a surprise. Garrett Bowles is the starting left tackle. Ben Powers is the starting left guard. Luke Wattenberg is going to be the starting center. At right guard, it is going to be Quinn Miners. And then at right tackle, it is going to be Mike McGlinchey. I don't think that should be a shock at all. Now we go ahead and we talk about the depth linemen that the Broncos are going to keep. I have us keeping Alec Palczewski. To me, he can play guard. He can play tackle. Fill in wherever you need. Filled in for Ben Powers when he got injured last season. And then obviously Matt Parrott filled in for the Eagles game. He got injured. And then Palczewski filled in for a good majority of that season. So he can play guard. He can play tackle wherever you like him. Really like Alex Palczewski. Then you have fifth-round pick Cage Casey, who played left tackle, I believe, all of college, but most likely going to kick inside to guard. Really like the depth that Cage Casey brings as a guard. I know a lot of people have been critical about this pick. I really didn't hate it in the fourth round. Maybe a little high at 111, but I do like Cage Casey as a potential prospect for the offensive line. Then at center, you got Alex Forsythe. Just simple, straight up. It's the two centers from last season. A lot of bad taste in people's mouth about Alex Forsyth, of course, 2 years ago, getting blown up on the game-winning field goal, and the Chiefs obviously end up winning that game. And there have been some up and downs throughout Forsyth's career, but when Luke Wattenberg did get injured last season and Forsyth had to fill in, I was fine with his play. Was it anything crazy? No, but I did like Forsyth's play. Then you move on to the other tackle, and I am going to keep Frank Crum, wide receiver 1 on this team. No, of course not. But Frank Crum was really the guy who, obviously, when you report as eligible as that extra offensive lineman, Frank Crum was that guy last season. Really like what he brings to the table as well. I'd say kind of a local guy. Not really. He went to the University of Wyoming, so north of Colorado. But Frank Crum, I did like what he started to develop into this past season. So these are the 9 offensive linemen I have the Broncos keeping, and I forgot to do it again. But in 25, we kept 9 offensive linemen. 24, we kept 9. And in 23, we kept 9 as well. So we're once again, we are keeping 9 offensive linemen. Then we move on to the defensive line, and in 23, we kept 5. In 24, we kept 6. And last year, we kept 27. So this is one where it's varied by year. So you would think, hey, maybe we'll keep 8 this year. Of course not. I'm joking. That is that is a little bit too much. I think 7 would be the absolute max, but I only have us keeping 6 this year, so that gives us a little bit of flexibility versus last year's roster. So here are the defensive linemen that I had us keeping. I have this Zach Allen, obviously, and DJ Jones. I think those two are the boom, easy. Those are your first 2 interior defensive lineman guys, and then who do you have as this right defensive end for the Broncos in the 3-4 system? You could have Malcolm Roach, and I've seen the argument for that. I like him more as a D tackle, in my personal opinion. Do you have Tyler Onyedem, who a lot of people are saying, oh yeah, this is a John Franklin Myers replacement? For me, I'm giving it to another third-round player who we drafted in 2025 in Savion Jones. Was developing all last season, wasn't inactive for most of the games last season, but I still really like the talent of Savion Jones, so I would like to give him a shot as the veteran. Obviously, both him and Tyler Onyedem were third-round picks. Onyedem was drafted higher than Savion Jones. Savion Jones was the end of the third round. Tyler Onyedem was the beginning of the third round, but I'm giving it to the guy who's been on the team longer in Savion Jones. Obviously, Onyedem could eventually take over, and that's who I have right behind him is Tyler Onyedem, who easily could be in that starting defensive end spot come week 1. The Broncos seem to love Tyler Onyedem, so if he works throughout camp and he earns that spot throughout the preseason, hey, I'm all for it. I want the best players playing on the team. But yeah, I think it's going to be a battle between them. Then you have Malcolm Roach, who I believe him and DJ Jones are going to be rotating. When DJ Jones needs some rest, Malcolm Roach will come in, and boom. I really like that combination right there. Malcolm Roach, a fantastic run stopper. Glad we were able to extend him earlier this season. And then the last player that we have is former teammate of Tyler Onyedem when he was at Iowa State, and that is going to be Ioma Uwazurike, the former 4th-round pick out of Iowa State all the way back in 2022. Yeah, it was the Nathaniel Hackett draft. Ioma Uwazurike, I believe, who still left? It was Nick Benito. He's still here. Greg Dulcich is gone. Damari Mathis is gone. Ioma's still here. De'Laren Turner-Yell's gone. Montrell Washington is gone. Luke Wattenberg is still here. Matt Henningsen is gone, and Fionn Hicks is gone. So 3 players remain from that 2022 draft. Went on a little bit of a tangent there. Let's continue on to the edge rushers for the Broncos. In 23, we kept 5 with Randy Gregory, Nick Benito, Thomas Incoom, an undrafted free agent, by the way, Frank Clark, and Jonathan Cooper. In 24, we kept Nick Benito, Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, and Jonah Ellis. Last year, we kept Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Dondre Tillman, Q Robinson, and Jonah Ellis. This year, I once again have us keeping 5. And Jonathan Cooper, I'm putting him first because he did mostly play as that left edge last season. But then you had Nick Bonito, who is your number 1 edge rusher, in my opinion. Jonathan Cooper, a really nice high-end number 2 edge rusher. Then you also have Q Robinson, who I do expect to get more playing time. Was really impressed on how he played late in the season. Got that big sack in the playoffs as well. So Q Robinson, honestly, his trajectory went up as the season went on. Really excited about him. But let's be honest, your edge 3 is Jonah Ellis. I think it's ridiculous about him moving to inside linebacker. Maybe he does, but you have the luxury of when Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito need to go out, Jonah Ellis can come in, and he's going to be a really high-end number 3 edge rusher who can get after the quarterback. So I would prefer to keep Jonah Ellis as an edge rusher, but that's just me. We'll see what happens with him and what the front office and the coaching staff decides to do with him. But then the 4th edge rusher we're keeping is Dondre Tillman, who I really like as a rotational guy. Actually led the team in interceptions at one point last year with 2 of them. But yeah, like Dondre Tillman as a player, so I do think he makes the active roster at this point in time. Moving on, we have the off-ball inside linebackers. Back in 2023, we kept 4. Back in 2024, we kept 4 as well, and 25, we kept 4 as well. So guess what? This year, we are also keeping 4. Alex Singleton will be starting on this team, like it or not, with his contract extension. He's a team captain. The players love him and the leadership that he brings. So the fans, we can say whatever we want. Alex Singleton will absolutely be a starter on this team next season. Same thing with Justin Strnad, who had a fantastic season last year and really improved in his ability, not only in coverage, just as an all-around off-ball linebacker. Was really impressed with what Justin Strnad did last season. The Broncos decided to re-sign him and bring him back, so hoping he can replicate and duplicate his best season in the NFL so far. Then, what do you do with these last 2 linebacker spots? You have, obviously, Corinne Reed, who was a UDFA last year. You have Lavelle Bailey, who made the initial roster, but I think the next day got cut, and we signed someone else. I don't think it was Michael Burton. Maybe it was, but you got those 2 guys as undrafted free agents. And then, of course, you have Drew Sanders, who's a former 3rd-round pick, but we've really never seen him play just due to all his injuries. So what do? Well, we're overhauling all of those guys. We're getting Mr. Irrelevant and Mr. Red Murdoch in here. And we're also getting Torian York. One of my favorite players in this draft, and Torian York ends up going undrafted to the Broncos. Really excited about him. Obviously, a smaller, undersized guy, but plays like he's much, much bigger than his size. And then Red Murdoch just has the power punch, right? Forced 17 forced fumbles in college, set an NCAA record. So, to me, you've kept undrafted guys on your roster before. Corinne Reed, Lavelle Bailey. That's about, the past 2 years you've had one, so why not just overhaul it and keep both of them? You could keep Corinne Reed, you could keep Lavelle Bailey, but I think you just overhaul it with Mr. Irrelevant and Torian York, who is a very, very talented linebacker. Moving on, we've got corners, and in 2023, we kept 7 quarters. This is crazy. Pat Surtain, K'Wan Williams, Damari Mathis. I remember when I thought he was going to be really good after the small sample size his rookie year in 2022. Riley Moss, who was a rookie back then. Esang Bassey, Jaquan McMillan, and Tremon Smith. But to be fair, Tremon Smith he's kind of a special teams guy, returner, nice gunner, but he was a corner by trade. Then in 2024, we kept 6 with the starting 3 we know now. Maybe that spoils something. Chris Abrams-Rain, Tremon Smith, and Levi Wallace. And then last year, we kept 5 corners. This year, like I mentioned, we're already keeping 5 corners. And we got, of course, PS2 as CB1. You got Riley Moss as CB2. And Jaquan McMillan, of course, as your slot nickel cornerback. Then, who else do you keep? Well, I'm keeping Jahdae Barron, but I'm moving him to an outside corner role strictly because I believe he has the versatility to play as a slot, play as an outside guy. But I think he could be a defensive chess piece for Vance Joseph. If you want a sub linebacker, someone who would really excel in coverage, you could play him as a sub linebacker. If you wanted to move him up top to safety, you could do that as well. So Jahdae Barron, I think you could use as a defensive chess piece. And then I'm also keeping Chris Abrams-Drain, who I really like as well. I think he's a fantastic corner. The only problem is, obviously, Jaquan McMillan's your starting slot, and Jahdae Barron technically is another slot corner. So you got 3 slot corners, and you just got to figure out a way to play them. So that's why a lot of Broncos fans are speculating that Jahdae Barron, he could move up top to safety and play some more safety. We'll have to see, but I really like this cornerback room. I like the 5 deep that you have here at the cornerback position. And so those are the 5 corners that I have us keeping. Of course, we are currently at 45 players. So we got 8 more slots to fill out for the specialist and the safeties as well. Let's move on to safeties. Let's see how they fill out. So for the Broncos, I have it should be a shock to no one. I have Talanoa Hufanga as this, technically, yeah. Anyway, I think I'm mixing up the safety positions right now, but Talanoa Hufanga and Brandon Jones are going to be your 2 starting safeties, and we'll fix everything. If they're not technically in their right spot, we'll fix it all later, and then you have Devin Key, who's moving into that 3rd safety role after PJ Locke left for the Cowboys in free agency. And then I have us keeping J.L. Skinner, one of my favorite players on the roster personally, and just an excellent special teamer. Last season, he was fantastic on special teams. Maybe a little shaky when he came into that Eagles game late for the Hail Marys, but J.L. Skinner, I really like on this roster on the last year of his rookie contract, though. So we'll see what happens after the season, but I really like J.L. Skinner. I do have us keeping 5 safeties, and if you can count, we only have 4 spots left. So 3 of those have to go to the specialists. So there's 2 safeties who could have this spot. It's the rookie 7th round pick out of Illinois, Miles Scott, or it's the free agent signing in Tyson Anderson, and I decided to go with Miles Scott. Could absolutely see Tyson Anderson making the roster, but it's not unheard of for the Broncos to cut a free agent signing safety. We did it last year with Sam Franklin when we signed him. I expected him to make the roster as a nice special teams piece, but we cut him. I like Miles Scott, going to be cheaper on a 7th round contract, but also longer with it being a 4-year contract as opposed to Tyson Anderson. He has experience in the league, but it's a 1-year contract. So I'm keeping Miles Scott, and I'm keeping these 5 safeties. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the specialists, and this should be very, very quick. You got Will Lutz as the kicker. You got Jeremy Crawshaw as your punter. And then the long snapper I do have is Mitchell Fraboni, but the Broncos brought in a undrafted free agent out of Oregon, Luke Basso, who's a long snapper. So if you want to get cheaper and younger at the position, you could absolutely keep Basso instead, and then more cap space can go to other free agent signings. But that is my first 53-man roster prediction. Oh, by the way, we kept 5 safeties last year, 5 safeties in 24, 6 safeties in 23, and then, of course, 1 specialist for these rosters. But, yeah, that is my first prediction for the Broncos' final 53-man roster. Of course, we'll do multiple of these as the offseason goes on. Let me know what your thoughts are of this prediction in the comment section below. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Parker, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.